The poem Tissue by Imtiaz Darka is by far the most hated, despised and detested poem in the Power and Conflict Poetry Anthology. Not only do students hate this poem, but some teachers hate this poem so much that in some schools they decide to completely bypass teaching this. They literally don't teach this poem, even if it's part of the poetry collection and the anthology that students need to learn. However, guys, what I want to do within this lesson is to show you how you can write the perfect essay on tissue and the perfect 3 points you can make together with terminology and context when it comes to this poem. Let's say you get it in your final GCSE exams, or if you get a different poem and you decide to incorporate tissue, I will show you how you can write a winning essay on tissue in comparing it to another poem from this collection every single time with these 3 points. Now, by the way, guys, don't forget that I'm going to be running a final Power and Conflict Poetry Masterclass on the 8th of May. So make sure you sign up. We're going to be going over how to get top marks before the final 2025 exams the week after, okay? So remember, any powerful poetry essay must always start in the first paragraph with the poet's message. The moment you start talking about what is the poet trying to convey in the poem that you are discussing, this is where you are immediately setting your answer aside from students who start describing the poem, who basically show a general vague awareness of it, and you start finding yourself firmly in grade 6, 7, 8, or 9 territory. Therefore, guys, as you can see behind me, I have structured and laid out how you can begin with your opening point relating to language, your second point relating to form, and your third point relating to structure. You must lead in your tissue essay by discussing and showing an awareness of Imtiaz Darka's message. And what is her message, okay? So firstly, you want to tie this message and your opening point to how, in the title itself, paper and throughout the poem is used by Darka as an extended metaphor to show how everything is temporary. Countries, religions, buildings. The central message of this poem is this view that even if we are always of the belief that everything around us, the buildings that we see, the countries we live in, the buildings that we are around, everything, including even our religion, we always believe that it's so firm, it's so stable, it's been there forever, and it's going to last forevermore. Just like paper, it is temporary and it is fleeting. That is a central message of this poem. And even if all of these things, countries, religions, and buildings, seem so solid, like paper, which we trust so much with information that we not only use paper to divide countries and draw boundaries, we use paper to even determine our religion, okay? So we look to religious texts. So just like the way we trust paper so much and we think it is so lasting, right? So permanent. Actually, all of these things are transient, just like paper. They are fragile, just like paper. Transient, by the way, means temporary, fleeting and passing. And what Darka is trying to say within this poem is that conflict happens when we as humans arrogantly believe that everything around us, and including the paper that we rely so much on, will last forever, and we hold too tight to what must actually change. That is the central message within this poem. Lead your essay and the point that you're making about tissue with this point. And these are the quotations you want to use, which you then tie to language, okay, in terms of how Darka is using language, because this is part of your AO2 marks. The first quotation which supports this is when the poem states the shapes that pride can make, which is symbolic of our arrogance as humans in believing that everything we construct, everything that we make, and everything that we see around us is permanent. Equally, the quotation, if buildings were paper ellipses, how easily they fall away. This metaphor is really powerful in demonstrating how the concrete structures all around us, which we even arrogantly believe are superior to everything else, even in nature, these will be fleeting, these will fade away. That's your first point. That's your first winning point. Now, in your second point about tissue, and this you are connecting it to form, you want to make this point. By the way, guys, remember, this is not an issue. This is not an essay solely on tissue. Remember that these points, you're then thinking about the language point for tissue and then comparing it to your second chosen poem. The second point, obviously, that I'm going to be talking about is form relating to tissue. Then you consider how form is shown in your chosen poem. And by the way, guys, If you're thinking about, okay, how does that look like structurally? How does that look like in a model essay? I'm going to be going over this and writing a grade 9 GCSE essay for Power and Conflict on the 8th of May in my one-off GCSE Literature Paper 2 Masterclass. So make sure you join in. You're not only going to get cheat sheets and 3-page cheat sheets for all of 15 poems, but also, of course, guys, you can ask me as many questions as you want before your final GCSE exams. This is your second point for your perfect essay on tissue, relating it to form. This is what you want to talk about. While everything around us seems like it will endure forever, it's going to last forever, it's ironically never meant to last, and it will be destroyed. And in other words, this now, again, you're tying it back to the title itself. Paper, i.e. tissue, stores history. Paper stores holy texts. It even determines our nationality when we look at maps, okay? These lines drawn on pieces of paper, if you fall within this one line, then that means you are this. This is your nationality, this is your history, okay? And paper has this much power, yet this power is transient, okay? So paper has so much power, yet this is passing. Now, the difference you want to observe is in the first paragraph, you are focusing mainly on structures around us and how Darker is trying to demonstrate how what we see around us in our civilizations in the form of buildings are temporary. In this second point, when you're talking about form and how Darker uses form to demonstrate this temporary nature and this fleeting nature of what's around us, you want to tie this into religion as well as countries, okay? Even more so culture, okay? In other words, this is what you want to talk about. The poem mentions religion and countries, which are two areas of huge conflict. Think about anything that you've seen in the news most recently when it comes to wars, when it comes to conflict. The top two reasons for wars and conflict is religion and also countries, territories, border disputes, people from this country fighting against people from that country. So she's using this deliberately and strategically within her poem, okay? And so this poem mentions religions and countries, which are two key areas of conflict, to show how misguided we as humans are in believing that they represent truth and they are permanent, okay? So she's trying to demonstrate this, and in your second point, you want to tie this to religion and countries. And these are the quotations you're doing so when you're mentioning this point, okay? And this is how you use these quotations to demonstrate form. The first quotation relating to religion is the mention of the back of the Quran, ellipsis, names and histories, which appears in the second quatrain. Remember, quatrain is a 4-line stanza. This is form. And the second quotation, which ties to countries, is maps 2, which appears in the 5th quatrain. Now, I think this paragraph on form is perfect, where you then tie it into context and get some easy AO3 marks. With this is the context point you want to make in terms of what Darker's message is and what she's trying to convey and what influenced her. What you want to talk about is that this poem, Tissue, was actually part of a collection of poems in a book that she titled, which she published in 2006, The Terrorist at My Table, which is a very interesting title. Why did she title it this? It's because this book, which was published in 2006, was in the wake of an issue relating to Islamophobia, which is the hatred of Muslims, which was happening as a result of the September 11 attacks in 2001, which heavily influenced Darker. Darker is using this poem, and of course this poem, which belongs into this wider collection, to highlight this key conflict and this key touch point relating to religion. Remember that the September 11 attacks that happened in America were highly influenced and highly based on religious attacks, okay? Now, the third point, and this is how you finish off strong with your third point relating to tissue. And by the way, guys, again, if you're looking at this and you're like, oh my God, okay, this is really helpful. How do I now weave this in? How does this look like in a grade 9 essay? Guys, I'm going to be covering that on my Power and Conflict GCSE Masterclass on the 8th of May, okay? This is going to be my final literature week. So simply join in. You can then see how to weave all of this together with a second poem. And more importantly, guys, you can also ask me as many questions as you want relating to your upcoming exams. Now, your third winning point is, and you should mention, a structure observation. This is your third point that you want to make. The poem looks at conflict, and by the way, hopefully you've noticed the main theme you want to talk about and tie tissue into is conflict, which is a very popular theme, right? And of course, if you get a question even on war, you still can use all of these points, okay? So the poem looks at conflict in terms of destruction, politics, hinting we create conflict by holding too tight to power and control and trying to make things permanent when they were meant to be temporary and transient, okay? So these things that we try and hold on to and we believe that they're going to be permanent, right? This actually creates suffering within us because everything that we see around us is actually fragile and passing, much like tissue, which we can rip up into 1,000 little pieces. Much like paper, right? This paper that we use to create maps, which then determines the countries we're from. This paper that we use to create religious texts, we can also rip it up. It's just as fragile as that, right? So it's passing. And what she's trying to demonstrate and what this poem is trying to show, and this is the solution that she's trying to demonstrate, okay? So you end this, your third point by talking about what is the poem trying to say in terms of how to solve this, okay? It's trying to demonstrate we must let go of this belief in permanence or war and suffering will continue. Now, the final quotations you want to tie this to in connection to structure is raise a structure never meant to last of paper smooth and stroked and turned. And the structural observation you want to make with this quotation, which is perfect for this third point, is Darker's use of enjambment after the word structure, and of course the tricolon in smooth and stroked and turned. And that's really it when it comes to tissue. And by the way, guys, I've created this as a free downloadable mind map for those of you guys who want to have something that you can use, something nifty. I know everybody has different learning styles, right? Well, some of you guys might find this video really useful. Some of you guys maybe want a PDF file that you can use that has all of this language and these examples that you can use as part of your practice and your revision. So simply just download the freebie, which is in the description box, okay? So guys, thank you so much for listening. And of course, guys, see those of you guys who join in my Power and Conflict class on the 8th of May very soon.